A diamond is a piece of carbon. It comes from the ground. It can be cut, polished, graded, packaged, and sold. But somehow, it became one of the most powerful symbols of love, wealth, commitment, and status on Earth. We are told that diamonds are rare. We are told that diamonds last forever. We are told that a diamond engagement ring represents something deeper than money. But here is the fascinating part. Much of what we believe about diamonds was not simply discovered. It was constructed, not by nature, but by an industry that understood something incredibly powerful about human behavior. If you can make people believe that a product represents something they cannot live without, you no longer have to sell the product. You can sell the meaning attached to it. For most of human history, diamonds were valuable, but they were not the universal symbol they would eventually become. Their meaning was different across cultures, their availability varied by region, and engagement rings did not universally require a diamond. Then the modern diamond industry began to change. Large discoveries in southern Africa dramatically increased the known supply of diamonds, creating a problem for the people selling them. If consumers suddenly had access to more diamonds, scarcity could weaken, and if scarcity weakened, prices could weaken with it. The industry therefore faced a fundamental business problem. How do you sell more of something while preserving the perception that it is rare? The answer would involve controlling supply, controlling distribution, and eventually controlling the story. The economics of diamonds contain a strange contradiction. A market can become more profitable when consumers believe supply is limited, even when production increases. That makes control extremely valuable. De Beers became the dominant force in the diamond trade through a combination of production, purchasing, distribution, and market influence. The company did not simply sell diamonds. It helped create a system in which diamonds moved through carefully controlled channels, while supply could be managed to support stable pricing. This was not the same thing as making diamonds physically rare. It was about making access to diamonds economically controlled, and that distinction would become one of the foundations of the modern diamond business. But controlling supply could only do so much. The industry needed demand, and demand could not be built by telling people that diamonds were beautiful. Beautiful was not enough. The industry needed diamonds to become emotionally necessary. This is where advertising changed the game. In the 20th century, De Beers worked with advertising agencies to reshape the cultural meaning of diamonds, especially around engagement. The product was no longer presented simply as jewelry. It became a declaration, a public signal of commitment, a financial sacrifice made for love. And once that connection became embedded in popular culture, the purchase changed completely. You were no longer buying a stone, you were buying a message, and the message was designed to feel priceless. Then came 4 words that would become inseparable from the diamond industry. A diamond is forever. The phrase was introduced in 1947 by copywriter Francis Jarity for the N.W. Ayer advertising agency, working for De Beers. It was extraordinarily effective because it connected a physical object to an abstract idea. Forever was not something you could measure. You could not put it on a balance. You could not calculate its market value, but you could feel it. A diamond became a metaphor for permanent love. And once the metaphor became powerful enough, the price of the stone became part of the ritual. The more expensive the gesture appeared, the more significant the gesture could feel. This is where the business strategy becomes more interesting. A rational purchase asks, what is this object worth? An emotional purchase asks, what does this object say about me? The diamond industry increasingly moved the consumer toward the second question. The engagement ring became a social ritual. Friends had rings, families had expectations, movies showed proposals, advertisements showed romance, and suddenly the absence of a diamond could feel like the absence of commitment itself. That is powerful marketing because the consumer begins to regulate the market from inside their own mind. Nobody has to force the purchase, the culture does it. The customer walks into the store already believing what the product is supposed to mean. And then marketing did something even more sophisticated. It began influencing not only what people bought, but how much they believed they should spend. Advertising campaigns promoted ideas around appropriate spending for an engagement ring, including the famous later association with spending several months of income. The exact benchmark changed over time and across campaigns, but the psychological mechanism remained the same: create a reference point. Once a number becomes culturally familiar, people stop asking whether the number makes economic sense. They ask whether they are meeting the standard. That is one of the oldest tricks in consumer psychology. Do not simply tell people what to buy. Tell them what normal looks like, and let them judge themselves against it.
The genius of the system was that several layers reinforced each other. Supply management supported scarcity. Scarcity supported price. Advertising supported emotional demand. Retailers supported the ritual. And culture reinforced the expectation. Each layer made the next one stronger. This is what separates a powerful marketing strategy from a simple advertisement. An advertisement can persuade someone to buy something once. A market architecture can persuade entire generations to believe that buying the product is simply what people do. That is a completely different level of influence. The product becomes embedded in behavior. The behavior becomes embedded in culture, and culture becomes extremely difficult to reverse. Think about what happened here. The industry did not need to convince everyone that diamonds were physically extraordinary. It needed to convince people that diamonds were socially extraordinary. That is a much more powerful proposition. A stone can be compared, a symbol cannot. A commodity can be substituted. An emotion is much harder to substitute. Once the diamond became associated with permanent love, the consumer was no longer comparing it only with another gemstone. They were comparing what it represented against the meaning of the occasion itself. That changes the economics completely. The closer a product gets to identity, status, love, or belonging, the less the consumer behaves like a purely rational buyer. This is where we need to be precise. The diamond industry did not simply invent the existence of diamonds, and diamonds are not worthless rocks. Natural diamonds can be genuinely scarce in particular qualities, and extracting, cutting, grading, financing, transporting, and retailing them all involve real costs. The more interesting issue is different. Scarcity has never been purely geological. It can also be commercial. If access to supply is controlled, if distribution is concentrated, and if consumers are taught to associate the product with rarity, the perception of scarcity can become economically powerful. The industry understood that distinction long before most modern brands did. It understood that people do not buy rarity directly. They buy the feeling of owning something rare. But no market remains permanently protected by mythology. The internet changed information. New generations questioned old rituals. Laboratory-grown diamonds introduced a new category of supply. Consumers gained access to more comparisons, more pricing information, and more competing narratives. And that created pressure on an industry whose strength had always depended partly on the connection between rarity, symbolism, and price. The modern diamond market is therefore entering a different era. The question is no longer simply whether consumers want diamonds. The question is whether future consumers will attach the same meaning to natural diamonds that previous generations did.
and whether the industry can maintain the emotional premium when technology makes alternatives increasingly difficult to ignore. The diamond story reveals something much bigger than diamonds. The most powerful companies do not always sell the thing itself. They sell the interpretation of the thing. Coffee becomes lifestyle. Sneakers become identity. Watches become status. Technology becomes freedom. And diamonds became forever. Once a product enters that psychological territory, price stops being only a calculation of materials and production. It becomes part of the story. That is why the greatest marketing campaigns are rarely about features. They are about meaning. Because when people believe a product represents something about who they are, they stop buying an object. They start buying a version of themselves. So, is the diamond industry a lie? That question is almost too simple. The more interesting truth is that the value of a diamond has always existed at the intersection of geology, economics, supply, culture, psychology, and storytelling. The stone is real, the emotions are real, the market is real. But the meaning attached to the stone was not inevitable. It was built, repeated, advertised, normalized, and passed from one generation to another. That may be the most powerful lesson of all. Businesses do not always create demand by changing the product. Sometimes they change what the product means. The diamond may be one of the clearest examples of how marketing can transform a product into a cultural institution, but it is far from the only one. Around us, companies are constantly shaping what we consider normal, desirable, necessary, and expensive. Sometimes we notice it. Most of the time, we don't. If you want to uncover the strategies behind the world's biggest industries, subscribe to LEXERA and tell us in the comments, what product do you believe was transformed by marketing more than by the product itself? A product can be manufactured in a factory, but a symbol is manufactured inside the mind. The diamond became powerful because the industry understood that distinction. It did not simply sell a stone. It helped build a story around love, permanence, scarcity, and status, until the story became part of the product itself. And that is where business becomes something more than economics. It becomes psychology. This is LEXERA, uncovering corporate scandals, financial disasters, and business strategy.